Okay, a few comments here. First one, the monument was to Confederate soldiers. It never should have gone up in the first place, and the remains of those traitors ground into ashes and dumped in the ocean. F the Confederacy and all you traitor cucks still crying that your ancestors' asses got kicked by Yankees. Another one says, not sure why you and others keep claiming it's the Reconciliation Monument. The fact that it is referenced dozens of times in the letters, decrees, speeches, and official documents as the Confederate Monument is pretty clear. Reconciliation is the symbolism. Another comment says, the same people mad about Confederate monuments being taken down are the same ones making jokes about giving everyone participation trophies. And finally, any more lies you want to spew, racist traitor? Nobody's erasing history, traitor. You're trying to honor treason and slavers because you're a traitor who wants to own slaves. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the only possible reason why I could possibly object to taking down a monument in a cemetery 100 years after it was put up is because I want to own slaves. But that's the only, what other reason could a person have? Okay, so once again, we see a lot of performative anger from these idiots. They should have burned their ashes and dumped them in the ocean. Effing Confederates. Like, why are you acting like you're actively mad about a thing that happened 150 years ago? So that's the first thing, okay? Like, calm down, drama queen. Stop pretending, burn their ashes to the ground. Like, this happened 150 years ago. Take it easy, okay? Like, you're not mad about it. Stop pretending that you are. We should be able, this is my whole point yesterday. We should be able to have a conversation about this without you getting all emotional, Cupcake. Second, if you don't want to honor slavers, as you say, or racists, I certainly hope you don't honor literally any human who lived anywhere on the planet prior to the 19th century. I especially hope you don't honor anyone who lived anywhere in Africa or Asia or the Middle East for that entire time, as those regions of the world practice slavery and practice it much longer, in fact. So I hope that you apply that standard equally, but I know that you don't because you're a historically illiterate circus clown, and so you're not going to practice it equally. Third, I don't expect the people who left these comments to understand this because, they're morons, but the southern states were not fighting to overthrow the government, okay? They were trying to secede from a union that they thought was freely entered into and could therefore be freely left. They were seceding, which, if that sounds familiar, it's because this is exactly what the Founding Fathers did. The Founding Fathers were slave owners who fought a war to secede from their government. And if they had lost that war, they would have been executed as traitors. And that's how they would be remembered. Now, it's true that slavery as an institution didn't play the role in the Revolutionary War that it did in the Civil War. Because at the time of the Revolutionary War, slavery as an institution was, basically taken for granted, as it was all across the world for thousands of years. But my point is that if you think that, so I'm not saying that the two cases are exactly analogous or exactly the same thing. Obviously they're not. They're two different historical events. But if you think that seceding is in principle treasonous, then you are saying that, first of all, you're saying that the central government owns you and owns your land and your community, and it's never okay to leave it. That's what you're saying. And if you're saying that, then it also means that this country shouldn't exist in the first place. Like, that's the awkward thing here. The American government was formed through secession, and 90 years later, some states tried to secede from it, and they were informed that they no longer have that right, which is the right that our country is literally founded in. Without that right, if that right doesn't exist, then the country doesn't exist. Now, however you parse all of that, and you could certainly argue that secession was justified for the founders, but not for the Confederates. You can obviously argue that's a perfectly coherent argument. It's not like if you support one secession, you have to support all of them. This is not a package deal. That's not my point. My point is simply that the whole question of secession is much more complicated than dumb comments like the ones I just read make it seem. And I guarantee that none of these people have thought through any of that. They haven't even thought about it. And that's how you end up with just, again, morons who, they can see the government tearing down a monument in a cemetery and doing it illegally, by the way. And then you have these morons saying, yeah, tear it down. Like, you idiots, you do not understand what you're talking about. You don't understand what's actually happening and why it's happening. You think the Biden administration is doing this because they really care about racial justice? You think that's what it is? You think that's their pure motivations? Is that the symbolism you take away from tearing down something that is called the Reconciliation Monument? In fact, one of those comments even admits that, well, no, Reconciliation Monument, that's just what it symbolizes. Yeah, exactly. That's what it symbolizes. That's what it's supposed to symbolize. And defying the law and the congressional mandate and federal law to rip this thing down, desecrating graves in the process. Like, if you aren't smart enough to be at least troubled by that, then there's nothing to talk about. Usually I wouldn't just sit here and insult you the whole time, but there are some people that just deserve to be insulted. And if you see something like this, what the Biden administration is doing here is so outrageous and egregious, that if you can't see that, then I don't have any respect for you at all. So, all right.